I got my first haircut in 4 months today, or 3 months. So that's.
I'm jealous.
Alan looks great.
It was so weird. It really felt weird.
Did you actually went to like a salon?
Well, the woman who cuts my hair, I go to her house, so I went to her house and we sat up. We both wore masks, and I haven't had the courage to look at myself in the mirror since I got back.
Oh, I'm sure it looks great. Better than everyone else's.
Oh my goodness.
The only time I've had lipstick on in the last 3 months is when I'm on a Zoom call. Hey, everyone.
Yeah. Oh, I feel so honored, Leah.
When else?
And I see Kara, our other GLIBA rep, has joined us. Hi, Kara.
Emily, if it's all right with you, I'm going to wait just a few, or no, I think we're just past. I'm going to open up the waiting room and just let people come in, and then I'm going to switch it over to you, if that's all right, so you don't have to watch the waiting room while you're screen sharing.
Of course.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Emily, is Minnesota part of this?
No.
Yes. Well, they're part of MIBA, and they're also participating today as well.
Ah, so Allison McGee, Emily.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Yeah.
That's a great example. Yeah.
Lauren Stringer is also Minnesota.
Perfect. And you have that beautiful map on the back cover of Minneapolis.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just opened up the waiting room. I'm going to turn it over to you, Emily, if that's all right.
Sure. Hello, everybody of MIBA and GLIBA Indie Bookselling. We're so glad you could join us today and these amazing Simon & Schuster children's editors to hear about some books we're super excited about. First, just a couple of things. If you wouldn't mind going off camera and muting while the presentation is going, so just to make sure the connection and everything is good. And we're going to take questions at the end. So as you think of questions, if you wouldn't mind just popping those into the chat and starting them off with a capital Q so we can search them. I think Larry's gonna keep track of questions for us. And yeah, so I'll invite my editors to be on camera and just give a quick round of introductions before we jump into the presentation. We have Caitlin DeLuey, who's VP and Editorial Director of Caitlin DeLuey Books. Sarah Jane Abbott, Associate Editor of Paula Wiseman Books. Alan Johnston, VP and Publisher of Beach Lane Books. Jennifer Ung, Senior Editor at Simon & Schuster Books for Young Readers. Kendra Levin, Editorial Director, Simon & Schuster Books for Young Readers. Karen Wojtyla, VP and Editorial Director of Margaret K. McElderry Books. Allison Heller, who's a Senior Editor at Aladdin. Siobhan Chimenera, who's an Editorial Director at Simon Spotlight. And Jeffrey Selane, who's the Editorial Director at Little Simon. And today, these guys are going to be telling you about books from our summer and fall list that they're super excited about. But in light of what's going on in our country right now, each editor will also be kicking off the titles they're going to share with you with one book that contributes to the conversation, whether it's amplifying Black stories, or it's about celebrating difference and inclusion, or talking about activism and race. So I think we've got a great timely lineup, and also just books that are super fun. And we'll get going. So I'm gonna share my screen. No, not that one. There we go. And yeah, Caitlin DeLuey is up first.
Hello there, everyone. I feel so honored to be able to present live in front of you. I always hear Emily get to talk about how the presentations went and how folks reacted, but to be able to present the books I'm madly in love with, it's just lovely, and thank you for inviting us to do this. I want to tell you about a book many of you probably know already, but unfortunately, yet fortunately, because we have the book, it couldn't be more timely to talk about it now, and that's Jason Reynolds and Brendan Kiley's All-American Boys. It's heartbreaking how timely this book is. It grapples with the repercussions of police brutality. Brendan takes the voice of Quinn in the book. Jason Reynolds is Rashid in the book, taking the voice of Rashid. Dual points of view. Rashid walks into a bodega to buy a packet of chips, and as he reaches into his pocket, a policeman in the bodega thinks he's reaching for something else and jumps him and beats the heck out of him. He wakes up in a hospital bed, having no idea what's really happened. While this is going on in the bodega, Quinn, who goes to the same high school as Rashid, sees the whole story, the whole episode unfolding, and he doesn't want to tell anybody what's really happened because the cop is actually his best friend's father, who has mentored him his whole life because he himself has lost his own father, and he feels loyal to his friend's father, and at the same time he knows as this turns into a community-wide protest, he has to make a decision to be on the right side of history. They're both grappling, Rashid and Quinn, with what is the best thing to do next, exactly like what we're doing right now, this minute, all over our country and all over the world. So again, this book, it's fierce and brave and honest and couldn't be more needed. Jason Reynolds is such a busy guy, and what I have next I'm very excited to show you is a new way of presenting his gorgeously reviewed, gorgeously awarded Long Way Down. Danica Nagorovdov, sorry, I always mispronounce her name, usually only illustrates her own graphic novels. But when she read the book Long Way Down, she couldn't resist this one, and she read a project of her own to illustrate this one. And as you can see, it's gorgeous. The ending, I just got to the ending of this. She just got to some of the pages on the ending, and I literally had goosebumps going not just up my arms, but all the way up to my scalp. I didn't know how something could be more powerful than the original text that Jason wrote, but in this format, it is yet even more powerful. And again, this is, as you might well remember, the story of a kid caught in systematic gang violence. The entire story is told on one elevator ride in 60 seconds, and is one of the most powerful things I've ever read. So a whole new format for those kids who really prefer this graphic novel format, for the kids like my own daughter who struggles with reading and who finds this a much more accessible way to get into a story that they know that they're going to be mesmerized by.
Long Way Down.
Oh, well, that's maybe. Okay,
Very, very different book
It's like
from
they're showing the book
Cynthia
covers
Calcutta.
and stuff here anyway, so.
Caitlin, hold on just a second. Somebody isn't muted, so if you guys wouldn't mind just double checking that you're on mute. Thank you.
you found.
Go ahead, Caitlin.
Oh, phew, I thought I muted myself.
No.
That's something I would do. This is a very different book by Cynthia Kadohata. Saucy is about a little pig, as you can tell by the cover, but it's also about a girl named Becca who's 11 years old, and she's a quadruplet. Her three brothers are all super great at certain things. One's a great hockey player, the other's very good at music, the other is sort of a child prodigy, and Becca is just Becca. But then she finds this sickly little piglet on the side of the road, and suddenly she knows what her place in the world is, and that is to take care of this pig. So they bring the pig home, then they bring the pig to the vet, and you know, if you have a kid who brings home an animal, once you go to the vet, you are all in. What they don't realize is that this isn't a little cute pot-bellied pig. It's a super cute, but the kind of pigs that grow to 300-400 pounds. And it's the type of pig that cannot live in your house with you. It needs a giant yard. It needs a different kind of care. It needs to not be tearing the cabinet doors off your cabinets and eating the back of your couch. So Becca has to come to the very hard decision of what is the best thing to do with this pig that she loves. Full of illustrations, as you can see, Saucy's cute as heck. The story also has a second layer, and that's about animal factories and where this piglet has come from and what the kids are going to do about the terrible conditions that other pigs are currently going through. So typical Cynthia Kadohata, getting in deeper, but with a story that just wraps you up in just falling in love with this pig. where we are is Allison McGee. It's interesting that as Allison wrote this, she considered it a love story to Minneapolis, which is where Allison lives. Where we are is a teen novel, and it features Micah, a boy who loves food, and his friend Sesame, and Sesame, a girl who loves poetry, and her friend Micah. And Micah also loves his parents. He loves his parents desperately. And as he sees them getting lured into the trap of a man who runs a cult, a doomsday cult, he becomes increasingly concerned. He becomes so concerned that once the doomsday cult man arrives to say it is now time to go off to the special place I've created to keep us all safe, he goes with them, making believe he believes in everything this man is saying, so because he feels if he goes in there knowing the truth of what this is not, he'll be able to save his parents. But he's a teenager and a little naive, and he gets there and he can't escape. Sesame, however, knows where he's gone. She knows he's missing. She doesn't know where he's gone, but she is going to search every block of Minneapolis, and she does, to find her friend. It's Eleanor and Park with a psychological twist, and it's also a story that reminds us that sometimes charismatic leaders don't always have the best intentions for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Caitlin. Up next, we have Alan Johnston of Beachland Books.
Great. Hi, everybody. So I'm here from San Diego, and this first book is called We Disagree, a very young, lively, and funny call and response between a mouse and a squirrel who disagree about everything until they discover that maybe they actually don't. It's thought-provoking and wise at its core, but it's all delivered with humor, terrific rhyme, and as you can see, completely engaging and endearing illustrations. We got one review, so we've gotten one review so far. It was Kirkus, it was starred, and it said, in this time of destructive divisiveness, mouse and squirrel's journey toward respecting their differences is an important lesson for us all. Next, we have Marla Frazee, The Farmer and the Monkey. This is the second book in what is going to be a wordless trilogy that began with a book you probably know, The Farmer and the Clown, that we published in 2014. That book received 6-starred reviews and won the Boston Globe Hornbook Picture Book Award. And it ended with the baby clown going back to his circus family and the little circus monkey sneaking after the farmer. So this one takes us on the adventure of what happens when the farmer and the monkey get back to the farm. And as you can see, wild times ensue, and as well as tender ones. Sharp-eyed readers will note that the monkey, when he leaves at the end of the story, has left the farmer, the exhausted farmer, with an admission ticket. You can see it in that top image. It's sort of popping out of the top of his hat when he's at the front door. And an admission ticket to the circus, which the farmer keeps, and it sets everything up beautifully for the final book, The Farmer and the Circus, that we're publishing on spring 2021, which, spoiler alert, is a love story. Next, we have Jan Thomas, who has not had a new book with us for 3 years, and she's back with this great book, The Chicken Who Couldn't, which is about believing in yourself and overcoming feelings of inadequacy in the face of challenges, all handled with Jan's trademark hilarious characters and zany antics and warmth and crack you up humorous dialogue. We're very happy to have Jan back, and we featured 4 of her many backlist Beachland books on the back of this POB cover. And last, but definitely not least, we have Looking for Smile. And as I mentioned earlier, some of you heard me, Lauren Stringer, the illustrator, lives in Minneapolis and has done a number of books, her own and also written by other people, including people like Cynthia Rylant. Bear and Smile are the best of friends, and they do everything together until one morning, Smile does not appear. And with the lightest of touches in both the text and the art, this book definitely handles the universal and very real topic of feeling sad, having a really blue day, and not having a clue what's going to bring you out of it, if anything will. we've talked about it in-house and said, it feels like an instant classic, but you're not really supposed to say that if you're an editor, but it feels like an instant classic. So other people are telling me that, so I'm going to say it to you. And really just, again, to close, really with the lightest of touches and beautifully illustrated, it handles, without ever saying it, the topic of depression and sadness, and how friendship can help bring you out of tough times. Kirkus just gave it its first review, gave it a star, and said this book is invaluable in this moment and beyond. And that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alan. Up next, we have Sarah Jane Abbott from Paula Wiseman Books.
Hi, everybody. So glad to be here with you. I'm going to start out with Harlem Grown. Our editor, Sylvie, first learned about Harlem Grown during SNS's Day of Service a few years ago. She walked from her apartment to the farm and was greeted by a lush garden full of fruits and vegetables. She spent the day weeding, planting, and getting to know the kids who help out at the garden and its amazing director, Tony Hillary. At the office the next day, she told Paula and me all about it, and we looked at each other and knew it had to be a book. So here is that book. Tony Hillary here makes his debut, telling the story of how he made a big difference in his neighborhood. In poetic spare text, he recounts the transformation of a vacant lot into a functioning urban farm. It begins once in a big city called New York. In a bustling neighborhood, there was an empty lot. Nevaeh called it the Haunted Garden. Tony invited kids from an underfunded school to help plant and grow. By getting their hands dirty, these kids turned an abandoned space into something beautiful and useful while learning about healthy, sustainable eating and collaboration. Now the kids and their parents, with the support of Harlem Grown staff, grow hundreds of pounds of fruit and vegetables a year. All of it is given to the kids and their families. Harlem Grown is an independent, not-for-profit organization. The author's share of the proceeds from the sale of this book go directly back to Harlem Grown. The book is beautifully illustrated by Jessie Hartland, who's known for her nonfiction, and their reviews have been glowing. Booklist called it an inspiring picture book for youngsters with meaningful ties to the environment, sustainability, and community engagement. When I Draw a Panda follows Amy June Bates's breakout debut as an author-illustrator, The Big Umbrella. This book began as a funny spin on a how-to-draw book, but as our designer Laurent and Sylvie worked with Amy on it, it became something much more. It begins with a girl who loves to draw but is frustrated about not being able to draw something the right way. When she tries to draw a perfect circle, she ends up with a cloud, a flat tire, or a scoop of ice cream. But when the girl draws a panda, it comes to life and shows her that he likes to draw his own way. When Panda is told to draw the right way, he would rather draw the left way. Panda's independent spirit is what sets free the protagonist's imagination, giving her the permission and confidence she needs to create art the way she wants to. My favorite spread says, when they say draw it that way, I do, but I add a unicorn horn later. In the end, this book became profoundly personal for Amy. Her youngest son is on the autism spectrum and has a tendency to take things literally and become frustrated if he's unsuccessful. Amy hopes that this book shows that the point of art is to love it and to express oneself, not to do it right. With a tone that's reminiscent of If You Give a Mouse a Cookie and a panda who follows in the footsteps of Hobbes from Calvin and Hobbes, this book celebrates individuality and creative voice. And next we have Together We Grow. Susan Vaught is the author of many middle grade and young adult novels, including the Edgar Award winner Footer Davis' Probably Is Crazy. So we're really thrilled to be publishing her very first picture book. In the tradition of All the World and Love comes this stunning, timely story about rebuilding and community in the wake of disaster. Lightning gash, windy lash. A storm drives all the farm animals indoors. Go away, we're full today, say the animals. The fox family isn't welcome. In a beautiful close-up, a duckling that goes outside to greet the foxes and invite them in shows everyone that they should be more inviting. The book ends with this lovely sentiment: large or small, short and tall, there is room, there is room, there is room for us all. Readers will be enthralled with Kelly Murphy's stunning illustrations. They're so luminous, and Susan Bott's lyrical, comforting text. I'm delighted to say that this book has received 4-star reviews so far. SLJ called it a truly inspiring picture book that will resonate with both children and adults, and Kirkus raved, this picture book is worth owning and cherishing. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah Jane. Up next, we have Kendra Levin, the editorial director of Simon & Schuster Books for Young Readers.
Thanks, Emily, and thank you everyone for being here, especially during this time that's so intense, and I think it's often hard to concentrate, so really appreciate your being here and listening to all of us. I'm here to talk to you about a debut YA novel that we're so proud to be publishing, and it happens to be coming at a time that is, unfortunately, it's extremely relevant, much like what Caitlin was saying earlier about All American Boys. And this is The Black Kids from Christina Hemmons Reid. This is the story of Ashley Bennett. She is a kind of comfortably well-off middle-class Black girl growing up in Los Angeles in the early 1990s, and she goes to a predominantly white school. She's gone there her whole school career, and she's kind of used to being the only in many settings and dealing with the microaggressions that her friends are often committing, whether on purpose or by accident. And then the Rodney King verdict is announced, and the riots start to break out in Los Angeles. And Ashley ends up finding herself on this sort of journey of self-discovery as she starts to ask herself and her family all these questions about kind of who she is and what it means to be Black in this world that is responding to her in a way that she's not used to. So it's full of questions and reflections that are very, I wish were not still so relevant to today, but I think there are so many parallels between the events of 1992 and what's going on in this country right now. And so we really hope that this book will help teens to have another lens through which to understand today's events. We were originally publishing it in September, and we actually were able to move the publication date up to August 4th. So we're trying to get it into teens' hands just as soon as we possibly can. So that's The Black Kids. And then for something completely different, we have Unicorns Are the Worst, which is a picture book from Alex Willen. This is the story of Gilbert the Goblin, who is just feeling very frustrated that unicorns seem to be the ones that always get all the attention when there are plenty of other magical creatures in the world that deserve some respect too. For example, goblins. They have all kinds of magical powers. They can turn a sock into a slug or broccoli into ice cream. So very useful. So Gilbert is, this is one of my favorite ones, when he goes to the store and he sees all the unicorn swag and he's like, what the heck? But in the end, when Gilbert gets into a little bit of danger with a dragon, it's the unicorns who wind up showing up and saving the day. So it's just truly funny. It's like, I like to describe this as, it's like the Fruit Loops. As far as like, put it on the bottom shelf, I think the kids are going to gravitate to it all on their own. It's got a very, very sparkly cover. And Alex Willen is based in Chicago and is really talented, and we have another one coming from him. So keep your eye on him. But that is Unicorns Are the Worst.
Thank you, Kendra. Up next, we have Jennifer Ung, Senior Editor at Simon & Schuster Books for Young Readers.
Hi, everybody. So first up for me is Cia Martinez and the Moonlit Beginning of Everything. So this is Aristotle and Dante meets Roswell by way of Laurie Halse Anderson, which is to say that this book is full of gorgeous writing, deeply felt emotions, and aliens. This YA novel follows a Mexican-American teen named Sia Martinez, whose mother was deported by ICE 3 years ago, then died trying to cross the desert back into the United States. Sia is filled with anger and grief, but in spite of that, every new moon she drives into the desert to light candles to guide her mom's spirit home. But then one night, under a million stars, Sia's life and the world as we know it cracks wide open, because a blue-lit spacecraft crashes in front of Sia's car, and it's carrying her mom, who is very much alive. This book is just plain brilliant, exploring themes of grief, anger, and the ways in which trauma passes from generation to generation. It's a story about first love, of mothers and daughters, and the irreparable impact racist policies and ICE deportations have had on immigrant communities and communities of color. But also, as I mentioned, there are aliens. The speculative elements are woven in a way that feels grounded in the real world, and in fact, this entire thread of Sia's mom being abducted by aliens is actually a dizzyingly smart allegory for the great lengths that parents would go to be reunited with their children. This is a book that's unlike anything I've read before. It weaves a smart concept with a relatable voice. It tells an incredible story, but also challenges us to take a closer look at the world we live in. It's raw and it's real, but it's also deeply empowering. It's one of the most special books to have ever crossed my desk, and I feel hugely honored to have been a part of its journey into the world. I hope you get a chance to give this one a read. All right, and next up is Shine. So growing up, I was told that the only viable career paths for me was to be a doctor or a lawyer. And the books and movies and shows that I consumed at the time sort of cemented that truth for me. If there was ever an Asian person in them, they'd be a terrible stereotype or speak with heavy accents or were otherwise exoticized. But then two random things came into my life that changed my world and my perception of what was possible for me as a young Asian American woman: ice skating and K-pop. As different as they are from each other, both gave space for young Asian women to exist far outside of the parameters of what I had imagined was possible based on what I watched, what I read, and what I was told. So from my tween years and well into my early 20s, I became obsessed with rooting for Michelle Kwan and Chrissy Yamaguchi and watched K-pop videos nonstop. I took a lot of comfort in this idea that Asian women didn't just have to be doctors or lawyers, but they could actually be artists too. So imagine my surprise and excitement when a few years ago I received a submission written by none other than Jessica Jung, former lead singer of the genre-defining K-pop girl group Girls' Generation. The book is loosely inspired by Jessica's own experiences as a Korean-American teen navigating the glamorous Technicolor cutthroat world of K-pop. Shine is an utter charm of a read, one that is fun and frothy, juicy and romantic, and pulls back the curtain on an industry that's pretty notorious for keeping things close to the vest. But more than that, this book has some really big things to say about cultural identity, about love, and navigating sexism and double standards as a young woman navigating the music industry. This book definitely hits all the bright and poppy notes that make for a hugely commercial read, but I also think it has that emotional weight that will appeal to fans of authors like Jenny Han and Sadia Menon. There's so much more I can say here. Jessica has over 9 million followers on Instagram. This book has become the center of major speculation and discussion on the internet. There's even an entire Reddit thread analyzing cover copy I wrote with fans desperately trying to figure out what's fact and what's fiction in Jessica's story. It's all seriously so wild, but I think it speaks to this larger truth that there's a lot of organic excitement and buzz surrounding this book. If it's not already clear, we think Shine has all the makings of a major hit in the YA space and has the potential to be a meaningful one too. I can't wait for you to read it. And I just want to quickly mention Rent a Boyfriend by Gloria Chow, whose hometown is in Chicago. And so shout out. And it racked up literally 7 blurbs from indie booksellers, thanks to the incredible Emily Hutton. And so we're just beyond grateful for the enthusiasm for this book already. So this one is a delight of a read that follows Chloe Wong as she hires a fake boyfriend to appease her traditional Taiwanese parents, which of course ends up leading to shenanigans and maybe real love. My favorite thing about this book is that it speaks to this pressure that so many of us feel to live our lives under the weight of what our parents expect of us, to the point where it can be sometimes toxic. Chloe's journey to finally choose herself over what her parents want from her was a hugely gratifying experience, and one that I think will be such a beacon for teens navigating similar situations. Gloria Chow is the author of American Panda, which was an Indie Next pick and received 4-star reviews among other accolades. We do feel that with its hooky premise, its irresistible voice, and its fresh cover look that has some serious Netflix original rom-com vibes, Rent a Boyfriend has breakout potential. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jen. Up next, we have Karen Wojtyla, the VP and publisher of Margaret K. McElderry Books.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming today and giving us your time. I'm going to start by talking about Lift As You Climb, the story of Ella Baker. It's a picture book by Patricia Hooby Powell and Gregory Christie. We have a short lyrical text and vibrant art that chronicles the life of civil rights activist Ella Baker. The title comes from something Ella's parents and grandparents taught her as a child: to lift others as you climb. And that was what Ella dedicated her life to, lifting others by fighting racial injustice. She began in the 1930s fighting for the rights of poor and working class African Americans. In the 60s, she was an important advisor and organizer for the big push for civil rights and for the young people at the heart of those protests. She was a trailblazer for women of color at a time when the leaders of the movement were almost all men. I think she's a hugely inspirational figure, and I think she should be better known. I love the gorgeous colors of the artwork in this book. Greg has won 6 Coretta Scott King honors and a Caldecott honor. Here he brings younger kids images that show the deep roots of Ella's commitment to social justice, and also some of the harsher aspects of the fight that sometimes became violent. The strength of her personality shines through in his amazing portraits of her. This book includes a repeated call out directly to readers, asking, what do you hope to accomplish? It's a call to all of us to say that this struggle is not over, as we are seeing very forcefully right now. I hope this book will really make kids and their parents think about these issues and take them personally. And I hope that learning about this history can help kids understand what's happening today. The next book I'm going to talk about is a middle grade novel where we can all fall into magic through the power of books. Hilary McKay's The Time of Green Magic. I am always really happy to bring in a new novel from this ridiculously talented writer. Elizabeth Wine, the author of Codename Verity, called Hilary possibly the finest writer of our time. And I want more readers to find her. Her latest novel is about finding a new family with the help of the magic in books. Our heroine is Abby, who is having a tough time adjusting to a new family when her dad marries a woman with 2 sons. Now Abby has to share her father's attention. But when they move to a new house, strange things start to happen. When Abby reads in this house, she almost falls into the books. When she reads Kon-Tiki and she's on that raft, she looks up to find that the book is wet and her lips taste like salt water. Then Abby discovers that her new little brother has an imaginary cat friend, only the cat turns out to be growing very fast, and maybe it's not quite so imaginary. Can their new house really be magical? And can the worlds inside books escape and become real? Hilary is one of those rare writers where you are sometimes laughing and crying at the exact same moment. Publishers Weekly just gave this book a starred review. They said, McKay leaves enticing ambiguity between the real and fantastical, creating an unassailable magic of her own in an incandescent portrait of family, friendship, and imagination. And lastly is Double the Danger and Zero Zucchini. This is a debut from Betsy Uhrig. It's also a middle grade book about books. In this case, our hero is helping his aunt fix her incredibly boring children's book. Her book was about a frog visiting his grandfather, and the climax was their prize-winning zucchini. Alex has the brilliant idea to add excitement and danger to the book. But because he's a reluctant reader with no imagination, he has to act out all the crazy stunts he wants her to put in the book. It's a hilarious read with super short chapters for reluctant readers and unexpected depth, fabulous plot twists. Everybody who reads this so far is laughing out loud and very happy to tell me, and I laugh every time I read it. It's from a writer who is a copy editor at Little Brown and whose husband is a sales rep. So a debut from one of our own publishing fellow travelers. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Karen. Up next, we have Allison Heller from Aladdin.
Hi, everyone, and thank you again for letting us join you this afternoon. We want to start off by highlighting some backlists and ongoing series that we have. So first up, we have Young Readers edition of Life in Motion by Misty Copeland. She is the first Black female principal dancer for ABT, and certainly her entire career, she has faced and continues to face barriers within the dance world. And she has used her platform to also advance and encourage the underrepresented voices in the arts, particularly within ballet. We also have the paperback edition of Never Caught coming out this August, and this is the Young Readers edition of the National Book Award finalist in nonfiction from our Adult Imprint 37 Inc. And this is the story of Ona Judge, who was an enslaved woman who escaped the household of George and Martha Washington. And this is certainly someone where her story isn't as well known, so we are thrilled that readers will hopefully get to know and understand this piece of history. And last on the slide, we have the fourth book in our Mindy Kim series, which is pitched as Fresh Off the Boat meets Junie B. Jones. And it stars a Korean-American girl named Mindy Kim who is navigating a new school and a new environment and new friends, all against the backdrop of being always the other in her new environment. The author, Age, and I are all Korean-American, and we all agree that we would have loved to have a chapter book character like this when we were younger. And her next book deals with elections, and of course, with timing in this year, it's certainly important for our young readers to know how to find their voice and make their voices heard. And next up, we have a new series from Beth McMullen, who is the author of the Mrs. Smith Spy School for Girls series. And in this one, 12-year-old Lola Banco has spent most of her life traveling with her archaeologist father on various missions. But one day he disappears very suddenly, and Lola just knows that he has to be alive. And so with the help of her new friends and her eccentric great aunt Irma, Lola discovers that his disappearance has a lot to do with a mythical stone that he has been searching for the past year. And this is a stone that is so powerful, it could control the world, and in the wrong hands, it could end it. And what I love about Beth's writing is her ability to find the humor in all situations, but she still gives a lot of heart to her spunky and kick-butt girl characters. This is also an Indiana Jones-esque adventure, and also delves into a complicated idea of family, both with Lola and her supporting cast. And the plot, like Mrs. Smith's, is full of action, adventure, and will keep the readers on their toes. We have 2 books signed up, and the next Lola Banco book is scheduled for August 2021. And with another kind of fantastical book from Alex Ott, who is the author of the Rules for Thieves series. In this one, 12-year-old Bryn, she has dreamed of becoming a seeker her whole life. And in her world, the seekers take care of all the magical animals that live in what's called the wild realm. And when the seekers announce a competition to replace a retiring member, Bryn can't wait to compete, but only boys have ever become seekers. So she is banned from actually participating in the competition. Thankfully, she finds an ally in Ari, who was another competitor, who makes her a deal. If she can help him take care of a baby dragon he has found, he will help her learn all the tricks of the trade within this Seekers competition. And while they become each other's biggest competition here, they also become each other's biggest allies. And when the competition takes a dark and dangerous turn, they uncover truths about their world that could change things forever. This is perfect for fans of Brandon Mull and How to Train Your Dragon. And Alex has really created another vivid world and setting. She also kind of asks a lot about gender roles in this world, where Bryn certainly has encountered a glass ceiling that has been put there long before she was born as a girl. And then Ari himself is kind of ostracized for being more of an empath and being what people consider more emotional for a boy, rather than kind of highlighting more of his physical strengths. The first book in the series goes on sale this July and has already received great reviews, including one from Booklist calling it a well-executed story that offers a wonderfully imaginative world for young fantasy readers to dive into. The next book in the duology will come out next July 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. Up next, we have Siobhan Chimenera, editorial director of Simon Spotlight.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I am so excited to talk to you about the next book in our You Should Meet series, Shirley Chisholm. Just went on sale yesterday, in fact. In 1968, Shirley made history as the first African-American woman elected to Congress. In 1972, she made history again, entering the Democratic presidential race, the first woman and first African-American person to do so. Shirley Chisholm is one of America's heroes, a strong and compassionate leader who championed the people of her constituency and the country, was unbought and unbossed, as she said in her campaign slogan, and someone every child and adult in the United States should meet. We have published biographies of so many heroes in this series, from kids who are saving the planet and changing the world, to heroes who made huge impacts in their times, like Katherine Johnson and Jesse Owens, and we are thrilled to be publishing a biography of Shirley Chisholm in time for the upcoming election. Then, also on our Ready to Read series, we are launching a new series, Super Facts for Super Kids. This is a fun, fresh take on nonfiction beginning readers about animals. Filled with engaging photographs, comic-style illustrations, and cool infographics, this nonfiction series is sure to flip, float, and fly off the shelves. We developed this series because we saw a need for animal-themed nonfiction with really fresh and fun interiors. As you can see from the sample spreads in this PowerPoint, we focus in on what makes each animal super special or unique, and we feature infographics and comic-inspired speech bubbles and illustrations to make the book really fun and visually appealing for readers. We're launching with 2 titles, Sharks Can't Smile and Tigers Can't Purr. What makes sharks super? Find out in this book of fun facts that also includes infographics to help represent the information in a more visual way for young readers. Did you know that some sharks are larger than a school bus while some are shorter than a pencil? Or that swell sharks have glow-in-the-dark eyes and skin? Tigers are the largest cats in the world, but did you know that they can't purr? They also like swimming to cool down on hot days. Readers will love learning about what makes tigers super, from their unique stripes to their sharp claws. We're so excited for this series, and we're planning on future titles featuring polar bears, alligators and crocodiles, snakes, and more. And I also want to point out that the paperback editions of these books, the first 2 books in the series, will come with stickers for readers. And then moving on, I'm excited to talk to you about the pop-up edition of our best-selling A Charlie Brown Christmas. This book will feature 11 intricate and beautiful pop-ups. We've managed to stay faithful to the story in only 5 spreads by utilizing flaps that open up for double the number of pop-ups. On your PowerPoint, you see one of the sample spreads. I'm going to let the book speak for itself and show you the spreads on my camera. Hopefully everyone can see me. Our working proof dummy was one of the items I grabbed from my desk before we said see you later to the office in March. So I'm going to show you. So you open up the book, and the first thing you see are the ice skaters. You can actually see them. You can actually move them across the ice. And we've got Charlie Brown and Lucy at her in her psychiatrist booth. I'm going to flip over to spread 3. This is the one you see on your screen, Charlie Brown and Linus at the tree farm. And we show Linus giving his speech. He pops up. So like I said, there are 11 pops throughout the book. It's really intricate, really beautiful, really true to the original. So I'm excited about that one. And then last but not least, we have been to many places and met many people in Daniel Tiger's neighborhood over the years. We focus on perennial topics like new siblings and going to the doctor. We've met the helpers in Daniel Tiger's neighborhood and in ours. And this August, we are very proud to publish Daniel's Little Songs for Big Feelings, a book that is very much needed right now. We know that parents and educators look to Daniel to help them make sense of the world for their children, especially in times like these. Each spread in this beautiful paper report will focus on an issue or an anxiety that preschoolers face. Included for each issue is a message from Daniel to readers, a strategy song from the show, and tips for parents and caregivers. And you can see from the spreads that Emily's showing right now on screen how we accomplish that, all of that in one spread for each issue. This book will be broken up into the following sections: new experiences, big feelings, taking care of your body, growing up and being independent, family, friends, and neighbors, playtime, safety, and being scared. Touching on more than 50 issues, we know this book will be a great resource for parents, teachers, and caregivers. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Siobhan. All right, last but most certainly not least, Jeffrey Selene, who is the editorial director at Little Simon.
Okay, I hope you guys can hear me because I've lost all of you.
I can hear you, Jeff.
There you go, perfect. First, thank you guys for spending this time with us and letting us tell you about our books. And also, I just want to say, being at SNS, I love seeing what everyone else is doing. So this is like a pleasure for me as well. But I want to talk about Little Simon for a hot second. We're going to start with our This Little series. So this series introduces historically influential people who dreamed big enough to change the world in an engaging and colorful board book that's perfect for future dreamers in training. The first one we have is This Little Dreamer. And this all of our series, they highlight 10 memorable historical figures who've paved the way for parents of little runs alike to show them this introductory life-changing primer that's full of fun, age-appropriate facts and bold illustrations. What I love about this series is I always say, like, the way to start a diverse bookshelf is at the age 0. So that's what these are aimed at doing. And here's the complete board book series, and we're continuing it with This Little Environmentalist, and then we also have This Little Rainbow forthcoming. Next up, we have Little Joy and Little Love. In this adorable first series of feelings, the main character, named Little One, learns what it means to be full of joy and full of love. So much so that in each book, Little One actually transforms into Little Joy and Love. This is a perfect first series of feelings. Little Joy highlights the sensation of being happy and bright, while Little Love highlights the love shared between parent and child. Of course, what I love most about this series is the way that Little One physically transforms into each feeling. And more importantly, the reason that I'm highlighting it is because we actually have 2 more titles in this series following in spring 21 that are called Little Mad and Little Worry. Because while we strive for love and joy, we still go through worry and we go through anger. And our hope is that this series will help young readers recognize that all of these feelings are important and they're very real. Then we have Hide and Seek on the Farm. This book is a bright and bold novelty book with very chunky lift the flaps on each spread that introduce readers to all the animals on the farm. The art style is elevated, it's simple, it's actually printed with a 5th color to make each page really pop for the young audiences. And the flaps are actually die cut around the flaps, so they're very easy to pull down. I really call it a first lift the flap book. We see this title as the link between the more sophisticated Touch, Think, Learn that y'all might have seen from Chronicle, but also the chunky lift the flap formats by Cottage Door Press. Which makes Hide and Seek a young and engaging book that bulks up nicely with story, novelty, and heft. And then I have to give a shout out to 2 of my favorites. Angelina Ballerina. Angelina is back with her best-selling picture book, Angelina and the Princess. We're going to have a refreshed hardcover edition. It's perfect for Angelina fans, new and old. And next up we have How Big is Zagnod by Sandra Boynton. This is a brand new book about aliens of all shapes and sizes that could only be dreamt up by the beloved and best-selling Sandy. Sandy Boynton has actually sold over 70 million books, but none of those books have ever been about aliens. So go Little Simon and go Sandy. But no matter how big Zagnod gets, this story is 100% Sandy Boynton. It's hilarious. There are laugh out loud moments that myself, as a way too old person reading a board book, still laughs. So I hope you get a chuckle out of it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, well, that concludes our PowerPoint. So I'll stop sharing and I'll invite the editors to come back on their cameras and see if we have any questions from the crowd. Thank you guys for being such a great audience.
Yeah, looking through, don't have any questions in chats currently. If anyone does have any questions, please feel free to just turn your mic on and ask now.
Yeah, feel free to chime in.
We do have a couple comments in chats from Alana from Schuster Books. So feeling Gilbert the Goblin.
Nice.
Anna Shannon. Let's see. Thanks everyone for sharing all these great books. Looking forward to inspiring young readers here in Newark, Ohio.
Nice.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you guys for, taking the time to join us today. Thank you so much. I know these guys so love having the opportunity to get a chance to meet with you booksellers face to face. And unfortunately, we couldn't do it in person this year, but, thank you for joining us virtually. I shared a collection of the books discussed with Larry, and we have downloadable galleys for each one in Edelweiss and full of PDFs of the interiors. But if you would like a physical art, we'll try to see what we can do to get you one. You could send request to Larry or your reps, Leah, Kara, and Jeffrey, and we'll see what we can do. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to quickly say I'll have that link available on the GLIBA website for everyone to download the collection. I also wanted to thank Emily, Simon & Schuster, and the editors for presenting to us today. We're in the Great Lakes in the Midwest, so we don't have the most frequent access to editors. A lot of our stores only get to see editors' picks during like Book Expo or occasionally the trade show. So we really appreciate you taking the time today to present to us.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And hopefully next year we'll do it in person.
Yeah, definitely.
So stay safe and happy reading, and hope to see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.